next week on Tuesday, on the 8th, we're going to be launching lending and borrowing. We're going live with Yield Boost. So when you start supplying, ADA or AVAX or ETH or USDT or USDC, you will generate a yield just by simply it being there. Even if nobody borrows it, you will be generating a yield on it. On Monday, the day before we launch lending and borrowing, on Monday, the 7th, we will be launching the MELD Neobank offering and the MELD mobile app. I think that everybody really wants to be able to take their assets and borrow against them, right? They want, right now we're in a situation where the bull market's coming. The value of your ADA, the value of your ETH, the value of your Bitcoin is going up. You want to be able to borrow some of that so you can invest in some more high alpha, tokens or high alpha projects.
Welcome in ADA Nation. My name's Fareed. As a part of today's video, we're breaking down some massive news when it comes to MELD. We've got some pretty big updates when it comes to the launch of their lending and borrowing, as well as their mobile app. But I'm going to be joined by Ken Oling, the CEO and the founder. I believe he's also the astronaut. Without any further ado, let me bring him up. Ken, welcome in. How are you?
Hey, Fareed, how you doing? Glad to be here. It's nice to see you again.
Yeah, it's been a long time coming. I'm so excited for today's conversation. You've been here on the channel multiple times. I'm not going to, bore anybody here with the intros, but you're more than welcome to go ahead and present who you are and a little bit of background about yourself. But I think we just need to dive straight on in here. There's been massive updates about the upcoming lending and borrowing platform, as well as the mobile app release. So honestly, I'm just going to turn it over to you, Ken. I'll let you guide the conversation. I am all ears. I'll have a couple of questions, but feel free to go ahead and jump right on in.
Yeah, I mean, like you sort of alluded to, we've had this conversation several times. You've been following since day one. And next week, on Tuesday, on the 8th, we're going to be launching lending and borrowing. So it's been in testnet, or it's been in private mainnet for about 4 months. So we've been doing extensive testing on it. And now it's ready for prime time. So it's been a long time coming. Very long, but we're very happy with the results. We're happy with the product. And now it's time for us to sort of hustle and get more people using it and sort of, shout from the top of the mountain so that everybody knows that it's there. And it's kind of the most advanced and the best from a profitability or from a yield perspective, the best lending and borrowing platform out there.
So again, I've got a couple of questions, so I hope you don't mind me hammering you here a little bit. But when lending and borrowing goes live, can you highlight what features of the actual platform will be available? I know that there's a couple of them. So for example, we've talked about Yield Boost, there's Genius Loans, the ability to lend and borrow MELD and other assets. What's actually going to be available?
So I think I want to say we have 8 assets that will, or assets/asset pools that will be available. So we have USDT, USDC, MELD, Bitcoin, ETH, ADA, AVAX. So when it comes to the amount that you'll be able to borrow, all of them except for MELD will be borrowable at a 50% loan to value ratio. So initially you'll be able to borrow 50% of whatever you supply if you want to. MELD is much, much lower because the price of MELD is more volatile than these other assets. So MELD is starting out at only 15%. So when it goes live, you'll be able to supply and then you'll be able to borrow. These are not the lending and borrowing rates that our risk model tells us. So we decided that we did the process and we sort of calculated the lending and borrowing rates, and they're much higher, anywhere from like 65%, 70% loan to value ratio. But we wanted to kind of tone it down in the beginning just to be on the safe side, to make sure everything is working well. And then over time, we have the ability to sort of crank these up to match what our risk model says. So we're being a bit risk averse when it comes to this, but I think that that's an appropriate thing to do. If everything goes great and we get lots of liquidity, then we can push that back up pretty quickly. But yeah, those are the assets that are going to be going live with it initially. You'll be able to supply all of those assets. You'll be able to borrow all of those assets except for MELD. So you'll not be able to borrow MELD. You'll only be able to supply MELD. We're going live with Yield Boost. So when you start supplying, ADA or AVAX or ETH or USDT or USDC, you will generate a yield just by simply it being there. Even if nobody borrows it, you will be generating a yield on it, and you'll be able to capture that yield. We will have NFT support, so we'll have the banker support, so you'll be able to get that boost from the banker when you use it in the app. The functionality for Genius Loan is in the system. It's in the smart contracts. It's been audited, but the backend system that does the actual payments, that has not been completed. So that's the next step for our engineering team. They've just finished Yield Boost and they're just doing extensive testing on it now. They will then go on to Genius Loans and they'll implement the backend side or the payment side of Genius Loans. Once that's live and tested, then all we have to do is turn it on the front end and it's ready to go. So the tech is there, it's live, it's audited, it's ready to go. On the smart contract side, we just have some work to do on the back end, the sort of, the payments and things like that.
So as you just mentioned there, that'll all be launching on the 8th. The two bits that you just mentioned with the yield boost, the NFTs and the Genius loans, is there any timeline that you can give us as to when we could potentially expect that to be added to the mainnet?
No. Yield Boost is going live on Tuesday. NFTs are going live on Tuesday. The only thing that's not going live on Tuesday is the Genius loan. The Genius loan will take a little bit longer for us to deploy it.
Got it. Got it. Now, one thing I would like for you to maybe clarify here is the difference between crypto to crypto and crypto to fiat. And
Yeah.
so again, I know you guys have two core offerings, and the crypto to fiat is what a lot of people are excited about, including myself. Now, obviously, I'm in the USA. That's a separate question and separate topic. But when it comes to those two offerings, what's actually going to be available on the 8th?
On the 8th, you're going to have, well, this kind of leads into a different conversation, right? So on the 8th, you will be able to take your crypto, lock it up, and you'll be able to borrow stable coins against it, USDT or USDC or DAI. But there's a very big, not a but, and on Monday, the day before we launch lending and borrowing, on Monday, the 7th, we will be launching the MELD Neobank offering and the MELD mobile app. So the MELD fiat accounts, on-ramping and off-ramping, all of that will be available the day before lending and borrowing goes live. So on this launch, these products will be separate. So you'll have the lending and borrowing, which is in the web app, and then you'll have the banking services, which is in the mobile app. So they're not connected as of yet. So what our team is doing as soon as this launch is completed is they'll be bringing those two products together. So lending and borrowing will get onto the mobile app. So you'll have a fluid process where you'll be able to supply your crypto and get fiat for it. And likewise, you'll be able to do that same thing on the web, where you'll be able to apply for a bank account, get your bank account on the web, and you'll be able to use a lending and borrowing there where you can actually supply crypto and borrow fiat. So they're a little bit disconnected right now because the amount of sort of technical kind of demand is really, really high to get these products into the market. And now, once they're in the market and they're working, then we're going to create feature parity between these two platforms.
And I can say, I've messed around with both of them. I've tested both of them. The mobile application, by far, one of the cleanest, one of the smoothest. And the biggest thing is the fact that it offers multi-chain capabilities. But then even with the web app, jumping in there, being able to view your NFTs, being able to stake, whether it's to Avalanche-based pools or the MELD ecosystem pools, or even Cardano, like this has been the one-stop shop platform. And so to see that you guys are going to be sort of, as you mentioned, marrying the both of them, I think it's going to really make the MELD app the one platform that you can go to and handle all of your business. And so maybe just thinking out loud here, and I'd love to hear what your thoughts are, when it comes to liquidity and adoption. I think that's sort of the next strategy, right? Like step number one was to build the product, get it to market. What comes next in terms of marketing?
So I think on the marketing or on the liquidity side, that is kind of the driving force after we get the product out there. Um, the more liquidity you have on your chain, the more that you can borrow. The more liquidity you have in the DEX, the more that you can borrow. And the reason for that is if in the situation where a position is liquidated, then in most cases you want that liquidation, whatever the asset you've liquidated, to be converted to stablecoins. And the deeper your pools are, the more you can actually sort of handle in regards to risk of being liquidated. That's one of the reasons I said before, where we've reduced the loan to value ratio to 50% to minimize that risk. So it's going to be a process where we're going to be attracting people based on really good yields. We're going to have better yields than Aave. We're going to have better yields than most of the lending and borrowing protocols. And so hopefully that will bring the capital in over time. One of the considerations is, crypto crypto investors are very risk averse to some degree because they're worried about, getting hacked or smart contract, weaknesses or risks and things like that. So it's going to take some time for us to kind of build this up. But we already have conversations with some institutions that are interested in putting liquidity in. We're having conversations with DAOs to help us bring liquidity in, and some of our investors have been putting liquidity in and have promised liquidity once the lending and borrowing goes live. I think that everybody really wants to be able to take their assets and borrow against them, right? They want, right now we're in a situation where the bull market's coming. The value of your ADA, the value of your ETH, the value of your Bitcoin is going up. You want to be able to borrow some of that so you can invest in some more high alpha, tokens or high alpha projects. And so we see the demand, or we see the sort of the hunger for it. Now we just need to get it out there, and we need to start working on the balance between the different pieces that make something like this work really well.
And so I think the next question, again, this is sort of focusing on my personal situation, and I know a lot of viewers here are in the same area that I'm in, is restrictions. Do you mind breaking down what restrictions will be in place, and then specifically maybe talking about the USA?
So when it comes to the fiat services, we don't offer any services in the US or to US citizens. Um, we offer fiat banking services in 160 countries, but unfortunately, the US and the way that they sort of their relationship with banking providers is set up so that they've sort of ring fenced their entire ecosystem. That said, we are talking, our back end is designed to be able to handle multiple connections, right? This is one of the reasons it's taken us extra long to build the banking side of it. We are talking to a couple providers in the US to work with, where hopefully, I'm not promising this, but I'm hoping that sometime before the end of the year, we can have contracts signed with these providers that will then allow us to kind of bring the Americans into the system in a safe way that meets the sort of requirements of the SEC.
That's massive alpha there, Ken. And when you mentioned liquidity earlier, I think that there's going to be so many users waiting from the US, like myself, right, that need
Mhm.
all the service that you guys are providing. And then, as you mentioned, with the bull market right around the corner, like as things go up in price, I'm going to be looking to sell, but then use those assets, keep them on chain, and then borrow against them. And so I'm
Mhm.
hoping that you guys are able to get something like that solidified, hopefully sooner rather than later. That said, again, what is sort of maybe the team's focus after lending and borrowing and the mobile app? Those have been, I think, the two biggest things on your guys' plate up until now.
Yeah.
You've mentioned pens, and development has basically come to stop. All of the dev diaries are stopping as well. But like, what's Meld's core focus after all of this now?
So when we talked last time, I said that the devs had stopped doing development. All of our product is now out for mainnet. So they're back to doing development again. So they're working on, for example, localization, so getting it into multiple languages, working on the parity between the mobile app being banking focused and the web app being crypto focused, and marrying these two together. And then, of course, Android. So that's kind of the big step forward, is going to be getting Android out as soon as humanly possible so that we can capture that part of the market as well. We did it for a reason, and I'm happy that we did. But now we're in a position where we can say, okay, here's the app. This is how it works. You have all the details behind it. We can provide the source code. Now go and duplicate this in Android. That's going to be one of our big priorities moving forward. The other thing that we're working on is, now that we have kind of structured, we have got the wallet, and then we have staking, and then we have lending and borrowing in the MELD app. So we're going to go back to the staking side, and we're going to start introducing staking opportunities. People to be able to stake to generate a yield based on, treasuries, stake to generate a yield based on property, stake to generate a yield based on whatever, pick something. There's 100 companies out there that are offering relatively high yields depending on the sort of risk appetite you have. So we want to integrate a handful of these into the MELD app so that people have more flexibility on, staking your USDT or USDC or your DAI or your ETH or your ADA or whatever assets you have sitting there. We want to be able to make it so that you can stake it and generate a yield, and you can choose to generate a super safe yield, which would be like, layer one staking of ADA, or you can generate a high, risk yield, which would be like, Dubai hotel property at like 15% APY or something like that. And so we want to give people the chance to make their own decisions on that, and show that there are these multiple opportunities to do pretty reasonably good yields on assets that you don't plan on selling. You're just going to kind of sit on. So then the last piece is RWAs. So we have our partnership with Swarm. The contracts have been deployed on the MELD blockchain. What we have to work with Swarm in regards to is, one, bringing those securities on, but two, we have to have a DEX that can handle them. So an AMM DEX like Azomi can't handle an RWA, right? Because to give you an example, if you take and you have a DEX pool that's like USDT and Tesla, and then somebody goes and they buy a whole bunch of Tesla and they put in USDT, right? Then the price of Tesla is going to go up based on that pool, based on the AMM pool, right? But the reality is the price of Tesla hasn't gone up, because on the NASDAQ, Tesla's got like a liquidity pool of like $200 billion or some insane amount of money, right? So you don't want that kind of price action to sort of change in an AMM. And so you have to have an order book style DEX, which makes it so you can pull those prices in, and you can manage that based on the global price of a Tesla stock, as opposed to what your kind of local AMM is doing. So these are the things that we're working on that, some of them are kind of already in process, like the RWAs. Some of them we have contracts, which is like the staking, and some of them our engineering team needs to jump on right away, which is like the Android app.
I mean, you mentioned so many things there, Ken, but that makes
Oh,
me even
sorry.
more bullish because no, that's exactly what we want here, and I'm sure the viewers appreciate that. This is exactly why I love having you here on the channel. You're an open book, and I've mentioned this before, but I appreciate that. Like we typically don't plan a lot of this, but the way that you
No.
know your product so well, it still rolls off the tongue extremely well. That said, you mentioned the Android app. There's, I think, a lot of opportunity there. I personally use Apple, but I know a massive majority of the MELD community is Android based. And so I think we're going to see sort of like a second shockwave, in my
Right.
opinion, after that is released as well. So again, really big news coming in there. I was actually going to ask about the RWAs, but you sort of, front ran me there. And
But
so I'm excited to see what. Mhm.
I forgot one of the big points, which is we're actually working on that now, which is the multiple currencies, right? So currently at launch, the fiat that we're going to be supporting is euros, but we're already in the process of integrating another like 15 or sorry, 20 or 30 additional currencies that will be available in like a month or maybe even less. So that's kind of the next kind of thing to come down the pipe right away, which is, you know, having currencies in lots and lots and lots of different countries. So now that we have the foundation built up and put together, now we'll start to see products roll out on a much faster basis. I know it's been frustrating for everybody, including us and all of our community, that it's taken so long. But now that we have this layer built up, now it's a matter of kind of building on top of it. We've done a very good job building the foundation. Now it makes it a bit easier and faster for us to build all of these additional features on top of it.
And maybe while I've got you on this particular topic, do you mind highlighting how the process looks like? I know you've done some test transactions, and I think you were actually sharing some of those on Twitter about how cheap it was to. I think it was off ramp, but just generally speaking, can you walk us through the process for somebody who doesn't have a bank account, how they're able to go from zero to actually having funds on MELD, and how they can go from MELD back to their bank account?
So you start out, you download the mobile app, and you set up the mobile app using your mobile phone. And once you've set that up, then you're asked to either put in a seed phrase for an existing wallet, or it'll give you a new seed phrase for a new wallet. That creates your MELD app wallet. Everything is then set up. The wallet is non-custodial. We don't hold any funds at all. And then as you have to take that seed phrase and you have to sort of store it someplace very safe. Once you've done this, then the wallet is all ready to go. And you click on the button to apply to get a bank account. Or once you apply for it, then you have to go through the process where, you show your passport and put on all your personal details. That process of getting approved typically takes about 3 to 5 minutes. It varies a lot. I would say some people it might take upwards of 15 or 20 minutes. It's one of the reasons why we haven't launched the banking app yet, is because we found a bunch of bugs and a bunch of problems with that KYC process where things were getting stuck. So we think we've solved that, but you really never know, because you're basically you're trying to test for 160 different countries, and there's no real kind of way for you to test 160 different passports. So our current testing base is about 35 countries, 100 users. So we think that that's a good sort of testing ground. They're all over the world. So once you've actually gone through that KYC process and you've got the answer back that you have an account, you're ready to go. You can now deposit fiat from another bank account of yours into the MELD app, and you can then convert that into crypto. Or if you have crypto in your non-custodial wallet, you can convert that into euros, and you can transfer those euros out to one of your bank accounts. So the process of converting from crypto to fiat or fiat to crypto varies a lot. It can be everything from about a minute and a half all the way up to 30 or 40 minutes. From a technical perspective, it is a 30-minute window, but because you're crossing lots of blockchains and there's lots of technical issues involved with that, it can take a little bit longer. That process of on-ramping and off-ramping, what's actually happening is if you have euros, then the app is going out and it's putting out an ask offer to a whole bunch of centralized exchanges all over the world and saying, what is the best price you're willing to convert these euros into ADA, for example? And then those bids will come back and they'll take the lowest bid. And then you'll get your ADA. It'll be the fiat is removed, or you've sent the fiat from your wallet. And then in about anywhere from 5 minutes to 30 minutes, you're going to get the ADA in your wallet from the centralized exchange. So that's basically the process. It's pretty straightforward. It's pretty smooth. We're brand new. We don't know how it's going to play out. Like I said, we have 100 and something test users, so there'll probably be bugs, and we'll put patches out as quickly as possible. But so far, people have been pretty happy with it, and it's a pretty fast and efficient process. So there's two types of accounts you can have. You have a free account and you have a premium account. In the free account, on-ramping and off-ramping, it has a 1% fee plus €1. So every time you do a swap from crypto to fiat, it's a 1% fee plus €1. When
Hmm.
if you have a paid account, the paid account is a premium account, and the swap fee for the premium account is 0.01% plus €1. So the paid account is 0.01%, and the free account is 1%, and both of the transactions have a €1 sort of minimum cost connected to it.
Looking at the grand scheme of things, I mean, €1 to be able to onboard is relatively cheap, in my opinion. Right now, I'm onboarding through Coinbase. It takes 6 to 7 days for funds to settle, and then I'm getting charged
Does it?
$5 to $6 to swap from. Yeah, yeah, it's
Wow.
painfully slow here. Binance used to be the same exact way. I actually just jumped off of Binance entirely, but I can't tell you how many times I've wanted to jump into, a token sale, an NFT sale, whatever the case is, and I try to onboard fresh fiat, and it takes too long for me, to settle and then actually get to the point where I can use it. And so to hear that, you guys will be able to settle things a lot quicker and a lot faster, and as you mentioned, with multiple bids, right? Lets me know that I'm going to be getting the best deal possible on the market.
Mhm.
Now, one thing that we haven't discussed, which I think is really important to also highlight here, is network inclusion. So most recently, you guys have onboarded and really sort of tapped into the Nigerian community, but just MELD, excuse me, the African community, and bringing sort of MELD to their attention. Looking at blockchains, though, you guys have recently onboarded, for example, Ondo, Pepe, SHIB, etc. You know, you obviously have roots tying back to Cardano. So, I'm not going to talk about Cardano right now, but like what other blockchains are you sort of eyeing to say, hey, we would love to integrate some of your assets within the MELD network to sort of, include them or to pull them into what you've already built?
So on the Cardano side, from what I understand, I think we've already brought in pretty much all of the major tokens from Cardano. I know we add about 6 to 10 per week. On the Cardano side, it's a bit slower on the ETH side. I think we do like 2 or 3 a week on ETH. Um, but the next blockchains we're probably going to bring into the ecosystem. The first one will be Base. So we'll be bringing Base in largely because it's a lot easier to operate in sort of the ETH ecosystem on Base than it is to operate in ETH because of the gas fees being too expensive. Um, a lot of people are on Base. We can, have our token traded in Uniswap on Base, etc. So Base will be the first one that we bring in, and then we will bring in Bitcoin. But the question is going to be not so much Bitcoin itself, but Bitcoin ordinals and Bitcoin runes. We want to bring both of those into the system, and that technology is not particularly mature yet. So we're not exactly sure the timing that will be required to bring that in. So then the next ones after that, we'll sort of have to see. We want to take a look at Solana for obvious reasons. We don't have any experience with Solana, so it's kind of an unknown. We want to look at Ton for obvious reasons. Again, we don't have any experience with it. Polygon is definitely there. We're already using Polygon on the mobile device because that's how we test Ethereum. And then BNB is another obvious one. So a lot of it's going to be kind of user demand, but the two that I can say that are kind of on the roadmap are Base and then Bitcoin.
That's perfect. I know just before we hit record here, I was explaining to you that I've actually been playing around on Base. The amount of liquidity blew my mind, Ken. The amount of trading volume also blew my mind. Again, coming from Cardano and then jumping to these platforms after, for example, the World Mobile Token migration, I was so surprised. I mean, you're talking like nearly $100 million being traded, on one particular asset in like a 24-hour, timeline.
Mm.
Go ahead. I feel like you want to say something there.
No, nothing at all. Just correcting my glasses. That's all.
Yeah, no. It's just been mind-boggling for me. So I think if we're able to see MELD get listed there, in terms of visibility and sort of bringing people in, because I think once people realize the offering that MELD provides, they're going to see how different this is. You guys have
Mm.
like basically built the full stack. Every other lending and borrowing protocol that I know and understand, built on top of a protocol. You guys have built your own network, and you guys have also brought in the off and on ramps. And so I think once you're able to get your token into platforms like Base, where there's a lot of user activity and people see the MELD token, the next step is going to be to actually jump into the MELD ecosystem where they can really see the full offering. Now, it doesn't just stop at on ramps, lending and borrowing, et cetera. You guys have also tapped into nodes now. So I think this is a really good segue to jump into that. But before we talk about the nodes, Ken, I just want to give you an opportunity to maybe give any final or closing thoughts that you think are important for the viewers to know about lending and borrowing, which again, that launch is coming up very soon, and then the launch of the mobile app.
I mean, we've covered most of it. Just on Monday next week, MELD launches the MELD Neobank, so you'll be able to get fiat bank accounts in 160 countries. I know I'm sort of repeating myself, and it's not because I'm trying to sort of advertise it. It's been 3 years, and we've worked our asses off to get this to this point. We've had so many people telling us that it's a complete impossibility. So the fact that we're actually here and it's already, it's ready to go. It's sort of locked and loaded. It's just a matter of us checking a box in the App Store and off it goes. So we're really happy, and I'm really proud of the team, the MELD team, and what they've done and how much hard work they've put behind this.
Yeah, congrats to all of you. And this is extremely well deserved. I know the core community that's been following MELD is literally bubbling with joy. When you mentioned the announcement yesterday during the space that, lending and borrowing is coming on the 8th, I mean, I can't tell you how big of a grin I had on my face. Like, that is a moment that we've been waiting so long for, it's really
Think
about to
about it.
come to. So
And it was actually too bad because, the space went, I think, from like 6 to 7, and at like, I don't know, 7:20 is when we got the answer back from Apple saying you've been approved to go live, and we were just like, damn, we just missed it by that much, because we were gunning for being able to announce the bank and lending and borrowing dates on the spaces yesterday, but we had to kind of side on be a bit risk averse when it comes to that, because you know how people are if you change dates. So but now it's good. Now we can do it. You get the scoop on this one.
thank you, Ken. It really does mean a lot. I appreciate that very much. All right. I think the next topic we can jump into are the ZK banking nodes. If I'm not
Yeah.
mistaken, tier one for the dynamic, is it? Have officially
Static,
sold out. Oh,
static notes. Yeah.
static. I,
Yeah.
I keep on getting them confused. But
It's
this, I
fine.
think, is a perfect opportunity for you to maybe break down what they do, the capabilities, and the ongoing sale.
Sure. So the ZK banking network is kind of the mirror network on the banking side to our layer one blockchain network. So in the layer one blockchain, you've got nodes that operate the consensus mechanism and the transactions for a normal blockchain. Everybody knows about this. You don't have something similar to that on the banking side. And so we are creating a network that sits on top of our banking stack that effectively takes all of the banking transactions, check on balance, check on debt, transaction from here to here, all of the different transactions you have in a traditional fiat environment. We take those transactions and we turn them into a hash, and we put them into what's called a Merkle tree. So this kind of aggregates all of these transactions into kind of a group. We then take that and turn that into a ZK proof, a zero knowledge proof. What that means is that the information about those transactions are there, but the details behind them, the sort of brutal transparency you have in a normal blockchain, has been obfuscated, has been removed. So, and then that ZK proof gets put into the MELD blockchain. And so what you can then do with that is, if you're the owner of those transactions, you can share proof to someone else that you want to share and say, here's on-chain proof that I have this much money in my bank, or that I have sent this money to this particular person, or that I have less than this much debt, or I have more than this, whatever it may be. You can send that proof to somebody, and rather than them having to go through a long, complex process and kind of effectively just hope that what they see is true, they can actually look at the chain and they'll know that every single transaction from the fiat side has been put on chain. So this is kind of our attempt to try and bring some degree of the value that crypto offers into the banking world, or bring the banking world into the crypto world. This is really kind of this is part of what I've wanted to see for a very long time, and now we're sort of close to being able to deliver this. And so with that, because it is a pseudo crypto network, or sort of blockchain network, we're able to offer block rewards. And so we could take those block rewards ourselves, but it makes a lot of sense for us to be able to share into the community both sides of the fence. People participated in the ISPO, they bought into the vision, they've been here for a long time, so now they deserve to sort of benefit from it. So we've taken the ZK banking network and we've broken it up into liquid nodes, which are NFTs. And then based on the sort of volume and the number of transactions on the banking side, block rewards are created and get paid out into these different nodes. And so we have two different types of nodes. One node, which is the black one in the top left, that node is a dynamic node. So it has a single price. It's 250 USDT or USDC. That node will pay out for 5 years. And the way it pays out, or the yield that it generates, is quarterly, and it's based on the actual traffic on the network. So it's a variable APY. While the other nodes, the static nodes, they're based on our forecast, what we forecast the network to be over the next 3 years. They only pay out for 3 years, and that is this is actually incorrect. Sorry, this is a 48%, not a 45%. This is a mistake on the artwork we created. But so it's a 48% yield. The thing is that with the static nodes, each tier has a discount on the normal price of the node. So in the case of tier 1, which we saw has sold out, I think it's like a 65% discount. And then tier 2 is like a 63% discount or something like that. So each consecutive tier, they all still pay out the same amount, right? They pay out 48% based on $250 or 250 USDT, USDC. But the price you actually pay for them to get those NFTs starts at $80 and goes consecutively up as the number of NFTs are sold until you get to $200.
There's quite a bit of information to digest there.
I
One
know.
thing that I've definitely no, you're good. You're good. I think you again do a really good job of like breaking down the details. One question that I've received on my personal content is, do these nodes actually require for me to go out there, set up some sort of server, monitor it, for example, like a stake pool or like a MELD node that's running, to verify the actual on chain or the blockchain itself. So could you maybe break down if there's any technical requirements involved?
No, there aren't. And the main reason for that is, in order to run a banking infrastructure, a banking network, because you're dealing with fiat, there are lots of requirements. There are lots of security requirements and standards that you have to follow. Things like PCI 1 and 2 that include lots of policies and procedures and lots of stuff involved. From a technical and infrastructure perspective, you have 27,001 compliance. We realistically, you can't expect thousands of people to manage this level of complexity. So instead of doing that, we turn them into liquid nodes, we fractionalize them, and so we have 5 different entities that will be running the system at the launch, and we'll increase that over time. But each of those entities have to meet all those basic criteria. Just the documentation on running the infrastructure is like almost 300 pages of documentation about disaster recovery and asset security management and everything. And so it was unrealistic to handle it in the same way that you handle traditional blockchain nodes, and so we did it in this way instead.
Got it. As a quick follow-up, you mentioned the different time spans where you're able to jump in and claim those quarterly rewards. Another question I've received is what happens after those time spans? Are the nodes and the NFTs useless? Can they be renewed? What happens after that?
So after that, they will be able to be renewed, but in what way, we're not exactly sure yet. Um, 3 and 5 years from now, we have no idea what the technology is going to look like in the blockchain space. So we didn't want to make any kind of commitments. But basically, what it'll mean is if you hold that NFT, then you will have, first rights to roll them over into whatever that next thing might be. And so, but what that is, we're not exactly sure. 3 years ago, ZK proofs were not really a thing. They were a concept. They weren't actually deployed yet. And so 3 years from now, we have no idea what might sort of change in the technical space.
Noted. All right, Ken. I want to respect your time here. I know you've got some
No
pretty big
worries.
launches coming up. I want to talk about your ecosystem, though. And so I'd love to maybe highlight three different projects. And of course, here, no favoritism. But there's been RawDog, which has been doing an extremely good job. They hit $2
I
million
have lots of
dollar market
favoritism.
cap.
Lots of favoritism. Absolutely, 100%. I think RawDog is absolutely amazing. Sam, the founder, he's done a brilliant job. I think he's really, really clever. I'm super impressed with his vision. Right? He's been doing this for a long time. It only launched a month ago, but he's been working on this for a while. And the commitment that he's made, he has writers, like comedy writers, he's got artists, he's got animators. He's going all in, and he's doing an absolutely brilliant, like top notch job with his work. I'm super impressed with what they've done. For me, it's like
Yeah.
it's almost not a meme coin. I mean, it is a meme coin, fair enough, but the amount of energy he puts into it is well beyond what you would normally find in a meme coin.
Yeah, that's so true. And that was really what I like what you just explained, the professionalism, the amount of time that it's gone into this. That was what I felt when I interviewed him here for the very first time. And since then, I mean, I've been in their Telegram. And when I tell you there's not a single day that I go there without laughing, I mean, the meme itself is one thing, but then their ability to deliver is second to none. And then on top of that, he's operating a MELD node. And so like he already had a RawDog MELD node before the actual meme token launch, which really showed me his commitment to
Vision.
MELD, you know. So
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, he's done an awesome job, and again, super an awesome community here when it comes to RawDog. Next, I'm going to save MEPE for last. What are your thoughts about the Hive crew? I know some of them are ambassadors, and some of them I have really great relationships with, and so I was excited to see, someone like Unknown King who's been with MELD, as you mentioned, for like the last 3-4 years, every single day within the Discord, answering questions, and then to be able to see them,
Mm.
leading a project now really goes to show the opportunity in how early MELD is.
And they roped Pepe into it, right? Good on them. I mean, I didn't even know that he was involved in it, right? So, no, I mean, the Hive crew, I think it's great. I mean, anybody who's willing to make that effort and sort of put in the time and the energy and sort of, get their hands dirty, I think is should get lots of respect. And when you sit on the other side, when you sit on the side where you actually have to make the actual project and get the project live and all the problems you deal with when it comes to the project, it helps a lot because you get a sense of context. You're obviously going to be a lot less critical because you see that, see all of the how the sausage is made and all of the kind of pitfalls you can fall into. I mean, Pepe screwed up the launch, right? And this guy is like, he launched a new type of proof of stake blockchain in December flawlessly, and he screwed up a meme coin launch, right? So, don't knock it until you've actually tried it. Doing some of this stuff, it's hairy business. And so it's great that they actually sort of went through that process. And you know community is everything in crypto. Everything. Culture is everything in crypto. So props to them for sort of building what they have.
And it's funny you mentioned that they're not a meme coin; they're a community coin. So let's make
Yeah,
sure that we
sorry,
get that
sorry,
right.
sorry,
Sh-
sorry. I'm gonna get all
Shout out to
kinds of
Pepe.
grief afterwards.
No, you're good. You're good. I'm really enjoying this conversation. Now, the last one here is MEPE. MEPE just released a song. MEPE also, I believe, released one of the first NFT collections on MELD. Where do you see MEPE going? Because I do definitely see MEPE beginning to become a trend. The Telegram continues to grow, and I think the artwork is really what captivates people. And so I just want to take an
Mhm.
opportunity to say shout out to MEPE because I got a custom
Oh,
one
yeah.
of one. I'll put it up here on the screen for the viewers to
I
check
know,
it out.
right?
But
You got a custom one. I don't even have a custom one of one. It's like, seriously. No, this is tapping into something very old in crypto, right?
mhm,
So what MEPE brings to the table is not what Hive or what RawDog brings to the table, right? RawDog is bringing this kind of new idea, this new vision to the world, right? It's Sam's vision, right? What Mepe brings is the Pepe culture, right? The That culture is so thick and has such history and permeates so many parts of the crypto space. And the fact that we have a meme that draws on that very, very sort of rich history and has a personality connected to Meld, I think that's super important. It means that the people running Mepe have a real sort of a value system that comes traditionally from like the core of the crypto, the Bitcoin guys. And to see that, it just makes me really happy. And it took me a long time in crypto before I kind of got my head around you know rare fakes and all the different sort of aspects of Pepe in the space. But once you get your head around it and you get your head around the sort of like the really kind of naive art and everything, then you start to understand that it's a very special place in the crypto space. And the fact that we have some of that, or we're getting some of that in Meld, yeah, I mean, it really makes me very, very happy that we have some of that sort of class act in the Meld space.
yeah. I mean, again, I'm super bullish on everything that's about to drop, but then even those plays, right? The ecosystem tokens that are about to pop up. It's one thing
Mm.
to see Meld go live, but then it's also another to see everything else that's going to be built on top of the Meld network. Now, Ken, this is the last and final question here. Now that we have MEPE, we've got Hive, we've got, all these different types of assets on chain. What are you now looking forward to when it comes to the Meld ecosystem?
Um, what am I looking forward to? I think NFTs I'm looking forward to. And I'm looking forward to, there's a couple of like protocols or like bigger projects that are launching on the Meld chain. So I'm looking forward to their token launches. But I think NFTs are having an NFT marketplace is what I'm most looking forward to.
Perfect. I think that will do it here for today's interview. Again, Ken, massive congratulations to you and the entire Meld team. Just in case anybody missed it, we've got the official launch of the Meld mobile application coming this October 7th, Monday. And then immediately after that, the Tuesday or the day after, we've got the launch of lending and borrowing. So I said this earlier, but I think the stars are aligning, and everybody that's been a supporter, right, and a member of the Meld community, I think will be rewarded for their patience. And so wishing you all the best. Get some rest, Ken. I know the next couple of days are going to be super busy, but I want to thank
Yep.
you for taking the time to jump on here and to allow for me to break the news to the general community. For you, the viewers watching at home, if you found any portion of today's chat while it was off the cuff to be helpful, insightful, or just informational, make sure to smash that thumbs up. If it's your first time stopping by the Dapp Central YouTube channel and you want more Meld-based information, make sure to go ahead and hit that subscribe. I've got a playlist. I think it's now over 50 or 60 videos long, every single one diving deep into Meld. And then last but not least, if you have any questions for me or Ken as it pertains to the ZK banking sale, their lending and borrowing, the Meld app, their expansion to ecosystems, make sure to leave a comment down below. That said, and as always, we'll see you guys in the next video. Take care, everybody.